you're going to need a little space for your binder here. Is that going to fit? You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for being here today. Obviously, this is an exciting day for us as we announce the next step on the Speaker's Task Force on Racial Diversity or Racial Disparities. Today, I'm really excited to introduce Representative Shelia Stubbs as my co-chair and my partner in this effort to address racial disparities here in the state of Wisconsin. Like I said earlier, we see this as really the first step in many going forward towards hopefully addressing racial disparities here in the state and coming up with a bipartisan package of bills that we can bring to the floor of the legislature. And that's really what the goal of the task force is to bring people together. So often in politics these days, we have one side or the other throwing stuff up against the wall and not really doing the hard work of bringing people together to get solutions actually passed legislatures and signed into law. That's really what our focus here is in this task force, is to bring Republicans together with Democrats, bring people from communities of color and faith communities together with law enforcement to really dig deep into this effort, look at the bills that Democrats proposed in June, look at bills that Wisconsin Professional Police Association just released last week, but then also look at other bills that are working their way through legislatures or have been signed into law in states throughout the nation. Something we're really excited to get done, and I couldn't ask, as I said earlier, for a better partner in Representative Stubbs. I was really hopeful when I took on this role that she would agree to be my partner in this effort, and I'm really gratified that she has agreed to help. So with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Stubbs.
Good morning. Wisconsin is in a state of crisis. It is an urgency, it is an emergency that we must tackle racial disparities in our state. Wisconsin makes up 7% of the population, but 44% of the prison population. Blacks in Wisconsin make up. The Black four-year graduation rate is 22.5%, lower than the white graduation rate. The median annual income of a Black family is less than half of a white median family income. Wisconsin is the worst place to raise a Black family. That is unacceptable. This is shameful, this is unacceptable, and our community deserves better. Racism is a public health crisis. It has plagued the Black community for far too long. We need to address the systemic racism and injustice with action. Not with speeches, not with press conferences, but with action. I've always stood at podiums and I've said, let's talk, more action. I am a woman of my word. I'm not just going to talk about a problem. I'm going to continue to do something to address the urgency. It is our duty as legislators to come to the table and be the voice for our community, and that is my role on today. Over the past week, I've spoken, I've protested, I've marched. Many of you have put me on film with our community that I serve. My orders from them are very clear. Pass meaningful criminal justice reform, and that is why I am here today. Why I'm honored to be a voice at the table. It is clear that these problems cannot be solved by legislators alone. That is why we will be inviting community leaders, faith-based organizers, not-for-profit organizations, and law enforcement to be a part of the task force. We cannot let our action devolve into political football. We cannot allow another unarmed Black person to be shot and or killed. In these desperate times, it is the leaders who are invested, knowledgeable, and with action-orientated that we will give them hope. If we want clear, creative, real reform, we need real leadership. Let me be clear, this task force is not a substitute for action. And it is not the solution, but it is a step forward. We have 9 common sense bills already made to be consideration that Governor Evers put forth that needed debate and needed to be voted on. However, it is still important that we make and take every step towards creating and ending a public health crisis of racism. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. And just to give everybody kind of a brief outline of where we go from here, we are, the Speaker in his announcement today made the intention clear that we are taking nominations via email at Speaker's Task Force at legis.wisconsin.gov. So anybody interested in serving on the task force or nominating somebody to serve on the task force can contact us through that email. Over the next couple of weeks, Representative Stubbs and I will be sitting down and talking with prospective members of the task force in order to determine exactly what the makeup will and should look like, and we'll be doing that together and making those recommendations to the Speaker's office. So that'll probably take the next couple of weeks, and then we're hoping to have our first task force meeting late September, early October, with a fairly aggressive schedule of meeting every 2 to 3 weeks after that to make sure that we can get through the bulk of information that we need to get through leading into the next legislative session, where we'll hopefully have that bipartisan package of bills ready to go. So with that, we'll take any questions. I'm waiting until the course of the investigation has concluded to see what the investigation brings to light. I think it's important to know the facts before politicians start talking about what charging decisions should be. But Representative Stubbs, I don't know if you want to address that. Okay. The question is, has there been a budget given to the task force as far as an allowable amount to spend as we work through those issues? There hasn't. We haven't talked about those details. And obviously heading into a legislative session where our resources are going to be somewhat unknown given the volatility of the economy, I'm sure those are conversations we're going to have at some point.
So Jim, with this task force, that you guys are not going to come in at the special session call? And if not, are you going to leave this thing open until the session expires in January, or you actually close it down?
Yeah, so we don't have any plans to gavel out of the special session. I think we always reserve the ability, if for some reason the task force were to come to conclusion sooner than what we expect. If we all of a sudden, had a package of bills that was ready to go by the beginning of December, at least we'd have this vehicle in the special session to bring people together. But it is going to be a volume of material that we have to get through. Obviously, we'll be looking at police reforms on the front end, and the task force addresses a whole host of other things as well. But those are things that we're going to have to work on.
Representative Stubbs, can I ask you, you've been critical of not having immediate action right away. What do you make of the timeline that was just laid out by your co-chair?
So let's be real. I am in the minority. The Democrats are in the minority. The majority of the power is with the Republicans. Governor Evers did as much as he could to help us with a special session. That didn't happen. This is the next step. This is a step I'm willing to come to the table and work on behalf of my constituents, on behalf of Wisconsinites. And I think realistically, to have our first meeting at the end of September, that means we're going to have to move very aggressively to get people to first learn about the task force, see if they're even interested in serving. What is the scope? What is the mission? What is the vision? At the end of the day, I think our Majority Leader Steineke said it best. We need to leave politics on the outside of the door. We'll never come to consensus. I am not going to fail. Failure is not an option for me. I am a pusher. I'm a reformer. I believe in what needs to take place right now across the state of Wisconsin, and Black people have not received the correct justice. And what we have to do is, it is an urgency. So we have to move as quickly as we can. We did not get the special session that we wanted. So here's the next viable step. And because I'm a co-chair, I'm going to be given equal authority, correct? So that means I'm going to help with the agenda, help with who's coming on the task force. But let's be clear, Speaker Voss is going to make the final decision, but he has empowered the two of us to move forward. So, I mean, it's the best schedule that we can get as of right now. I don't have anything else that's available.
Meeting once every 2 to 3 weeks doesn't sound like urgency.
Well, you have to have enough time. Come on, Steineke. So you have to have enough time to gather the information. Let's be clear. We already know what the problems are. We already have bills that have been in this Capitol that have been introduced for years. It's coming to the table and everyone agreeing to move forward with the consensus. As you can see now, we are stuck. The Democrats and Republicans, we are stuck. Our governor did the best he could do with the authority that he had. And right now, this is what we have. And I am willing, as a Democrat, to come to the table and move forward. I don't want to see another Black person killed and unarmed. We have our professional teams that have spoken out. I've been out with protesters. It is an urgency. We have bills already drafted. It's about getting people to come to the table with consensus in order to move forward a package of bills when session first starts. There is no other way to do it. And so this is the next step that's happening. Representative Steineke, you want to speak on it?
Sure. And Representative, the one thing I really love about Representative Stubbs is her willingness to bring people together to find common solutions to significant issues that are facing our state. The urgency, that sounded more like an editorial comment than a question, to be honest with you. The urgency is clear. I mean, but as far as a meeting schedule, meeting every 2 or 3 weeks should show the people that we are serious about this, that we are trying to get to some resolution by the end of the year so that we can have that package of legislation to move forward. The volume of information that this task force is going to have to debate is great. Having a task force meeting 1 week and giving a couple of weeks for people to digest it, read through materials, and come up with some ideas, I think is reasonable. So we'll set as an aggressive schedule as we can to make sure that we get to the point we want to get to by the end of the year.
If we've seen these bills before, why should we expect any change now if we're going to just see the same bills again?
Well, I think what you're going to see is people actually coming together to talk about them. In the past, and with all due respect to Governor Evers and the package of bills he released in June, he didn't try to bring Republicans and Democrats together. What he said was, here's some bills, pass them. And what we're saying through this process is, let's take a look at those bills as Republicans and Democrats working together with people in the communities of color, with law enforcement, so we can ensure that everybody has a seat at the table and that everybody has some ownership of the solutions once we get there and we find that consensus. That's how we show not only the state but the nation that government isn't completely broken, that Republicans and Democrats still can work together on the big issues of the day to get things done, to make significant change in people's lives. That's our task, and that's something I feel more confident than ever with the partnership with Representative Stubbs that we can accomplish.
Let me make a comment, please, with the bills from Governor Evers. Governor Evers worked very closely with the Wisconsin Legislative Black Caucus, and we actually submitted some bills to the governor. Those were 9 bills that were before you. They were common sense bills like no chokeholds and racial profiling. There were simple bills, excessive use of force. Here is the problem. Our Republican colleagues did not sign on to bills. That's why Governor Evers asked for a special session. What's going to happen now is the Republicans or Democrats have to come together to the table and work on bills. So we're going to have some of those same bills right before us, and that's what Representative Steineke was saying. We're going to now have communities coming in, community organizers and not-for-profits and faith-based and police, law enforcement coming to the table, and everyone has to give something. We're all looking at these bills and saying, okay, what bills are we going to move forward? I want all these bills to have real criminal justice reform, and in order to have reform, you have to have change. This is about checking your politics at the door. I'm not going to waste my time to do something that's not going to make a difference. So it is imperative. If we really want to change these daunting racial disparities, Wisconsin is the worst state for a black person, then we have to come to the table because, again, let's be clear, the House and the Assembly are both ran by the Republicans. They're in the majority. I am in the minority, and in order to get things done, we're coming to the table to move, and Governor Evers has done as much as he can to help us. So I wanted to be clear with that.
Do you have faith Republicans are going to listen and want to pass the reform that you want?
We're here. Steineke's the co-chair. We have Speaker Voss's ear. I mean, it's going to be a compromise committee, about 4 to 6 electeds, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, or, you know, if we add the senators in, it'd be 3 and 3. If not, it'd be 2 and 2. So we will be more outnumbered by community, which is a great thing, than the elected officials. And so letting community drive this conversation, I think, is critical. You know, let's not kill the process before we get started. It's overdue. I need something done right now. It is an urgency. It is a crisis. And if this is what it takes for me to move forward, I'm willing to do it.
Okay, one more. Yeah, I think we're going to consider everything. Democrat proposals, Republican proposals, things from WPPA and others in law enforcement, as well as reforms that have been put into place by other states. So we're not going to short circuit this effort. I appreciate Representative Stubbs' optimism on this, because I really think that this is an opportunity for us all to show that this doesn't have to be about politics. We don't have to be embroiled in partisanship. We can work to get things done, and that's my intention. And like Representative Stubbs, I don't get involved in efforts only to see them fail. I get involved in efforts because I think that there's a chance for success, and I'll be pushing hard for that. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
This program is a production of WisconsinEye, an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit media network with a mission to inform, educate, and engage the citizens of Wisconsin. WisconsinEye is the nation's first and only independently funded state civic broadcast network, providing gavel-to-gavel access to government proceedings and events at the state capitol.